Welcome to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. Over the next half an hour, we'll be looking beyond the business headlines by giving you in-depth perspective on the stories that are affecting all of us. Coming up on today's show, with the UK's cost of living crisis forecast to impact families from minority communities at a greater rate than their white counterparts, I'll be examining how this could have a direct impact on diaspora remittance flows. The CEO of the new payment platform SendSprint, Busari, will be joining me from Lagos to discuss this. And Cornelius Sunwo, the director of the Nigerian School Foundation, will join me here in the studio to explain how community groups like the NSF are doubling up efforts to assist Nigerians wherever they are in the world. Then later, I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business stories of the week. Let's get straight to it. According to the World Bank, Nigeria's diaspora remittance inflow will increase to $29 billion this year. The 7.1% rise has been attributed to the continued adoption of official bank channels. Although well-established platforms like Western Union and MoneyGram dominate the market here in the UK, there are new fintech payment platforms being launched here, offering more services at lower costs. Busari, a former Flutterwave executive, is the CEO of SendSprint that was launched here in Britain last month. Let's talk to her now. Busari, it's such a pleasure to have you on Channel's Business Global. I was reading just a couple of hours ago that the remittance market is going to be worth over $850 billion within the next couple of years. I suppose that's one of the reasons why you decided to enter the market. But I think for our viewers in the UK, you're used to seeing some of the names like Western Union and others that dominate. Why did you decide then to believe, should I say, that you could kind of chip away at their customer base? What is the unique selling point of SendSprint?
Thanks for having me, Juliana. The unique selling point really is the fact that not only are we providing multiple points of improvement in the existing service, we're providing not only is it a flat fee experience, not only have we improved the service experience, but as an African who spends some time in the diaspora, I'm intimately aware of the fact that once you do travel, the nature of your relationship becomes incredibly transactional, and we don't feel like that should be the experience. So the value that we then bring into the space is offering a gift card or a value piece to remittance. So this means that not only can I send money to someone in Nigeria or in Ghana or in Kenya, I can also, if they've had a bad day, for example, I can also give them a voucher to go to the spa or to pay for groceries. So that value piece, which really is the end use of the remittance inflows, is what we're also bringing to the space. Now, that combination of a send money experience, an optimized send money experience, and a value piece is then what makes a SendSprint product the better remittance solution for an African in the diaspora who's looking to maintain their connections with home.
I think that's a really good point. And I know there's been so much focus and research been done on the remittance market. And I know that there are so many players that are trying to assist with development, but trying to assist and offer products that can put a smile on somebody's face is also a good option too. Damacy, there's always going to be people. We know them. They want to take the money in the back of their pocket, in their wallet, in a brown envelope in their luggage. However, I think because of COVID, people have realized that, going digital is the way to do it. How are you able to, attract those customers, our parents, the people that they're not sure about money transferring, they go to the continent often and they would rather take it in the luggage. Have you been able to try and, pull them away from doing that and using your service?
Yes, that older African audience is actually a market that we really are focusing on. The problems and the reason that behavior of traveling with cash has existed for so long is quite frankly just because there is a lack of trust. Now, we working with trusted payment partners globally allows us to give them the confidence that they need to use the service. But then because we're also offering additional value outside, the money piece, which is ultimately the reason that they're sending money. You want to see that the reason you've given the money has been used for its intended purpose. That value offering is, again, that because we're able to give them a confidence on the trust piece and value on the value offering piece is why the SendSprint product is equally attractive to that older African audience. Yes, it's a digital solution, but again, they're using their phones all the time, so they're intimately aware with what is going on in the technology space. The product is easy to use, so it's not necessarily demanding an expert level understanding of technology. It's as simple as paying for your grocery on Tesco's website or, using any technology solution that they're already intimately familiar with.
Right. Another one of your USPs, Damasi, is that you have a $5 flat fee. I was talking about this extensive research. I know that the EU and AU have been looking at remittance flows and how they can be, even more. And they've said that it does cost too much money to send to lower to middle income countries. Are you confident that you can stay at that $5, or could you even go lower?
Absolutely, yes, because we know how expensive it is. And the expensive piece is actually a two-pronged problem. It is expensive on the exchange rate piece. It's also expensive on the transaction fee piece as well. So when you're trying to send money, then you're having to do a lot of calculations. Keeping it at a flat fee experience means that regardless of whenever you're interacting with the product, you already know beforehand how much it's going to cost. Giving people that confidence and that security in the solution is what, again, separates us from everybody else. Absolutely. Could we go lower? Yes, it's something that we know because we believe so strongly in the financial model. It's something that, if the business makes that possible, it definitely would be available to customers, yes.
And lastly, Damasi, I know you're away at the moment, travelling between the continent, but the huge issue that's dominating headlines here in the UK has got to be the cost of living crisis, high inflation. We know it's really hitting homes, but there's new research out this week suggesting that it's impacting people from minority communities much more. Do you worry sometimes, because I know you have lots of executive experience, one of them being at Flutterwave, that sometimes, these domestic issues within the diaspora does affect the amount of money people can send back?
It definitely does. And that's why it's absolutely important that the intended purpose of remittance inflows are used for those purposes. So right now, it's important that if I'm sending £100 to my brother in Nigeria for grocery bills, he's not using that money to buy a phone, right? So it's absolutely important that we're able to make sure that the intended purpose is what people are actually using those remittance inflows for. And that's why the product, again, is really just coming out at this right time, we believe, where if you're sending money for a purpose with the SendSprint product, you will be guaranteed that the intended purpose will be realized.
Well, Damasi, it's always great to have a female CEO entering a pretty competitive market, especially here in the UK, where those dominant players have been lapping up the success far too long. So I do wish you all the success, and I do hope to have you in the studio when you come back into the capital. Damasi Busari, the CEO of SendSprint, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Juliana. Enjoy.
Let's stay with our focus on the diaspora, but this time we'll be taking a look at how Nigerians living in the UK are coping with the soaring cost of living crisis that has gripped millions of households. High inflation has been forecast to cause the biggest drop in living standards in decades, but data suggests black and ethnic minority residents may be particularly vulnerable. The New Economics Foundation think tank recently published an analysis warning that black households will experience an average increase in the cost of living 1.6 times greater than their white counterparts. This is just one issue that my next guest, Cornelius Wole Sonwo, the director of Nigerian School Foundation UK, has pledged to tackle, alongside the support his group has been offering to families living in Nigeria too. Wole Cornelius Sonwo, it's an absolute pleasure having you in the Channel's Business Global studio today. I've got to say, Nigerian community groups in the UK, we're not short of them. However, the NSF are very, very busy, and I know you've done some amazing work during the pandemic. But for our viewers that are not familiar with the Nigerian Schools Foundation, what exactly is it you do, apart from the headline, which is obviously helping people send money home, helping with school fees, helping to train teachers?
Thank you very much, Juliana. Thanks for having me. Nigerian Schools Foundation NSF UK stands for Nigerian Schools Foundation. We've been in existence for about 10 years now. As you said, we do more than just send money back home. Our vision is actually quality education for all Nigerians. And our members, when we started off in 2012, we only had about 9 members. We've grown off to be about 54 currently. And all our members, do fundraising activities for infrastructure development back in Nigeria to support teachers, to support the students as well. So we've been, doing all of that. So NSF is more than that. I'll give you some grim statistics actually about Nigeria, and that tells you the reason why we're involved. I'm sure you've probably had it bandied around that 10.5 million kids are actually out of school. Do you know that?
10.5 million?
Million, yeah.
Is that all?
They're out of school. Do you know that that's the size of the population of London, right? At one point, in Nigeria, they had a shortfall of about 500,000 teachers that they needed. Again, that's roughly the number of teachers in the public schools here in the UK. And also, if you look at the teachers to students ratio, here is about maybe 17, about half of what it is in Nigeria. In Nigeria, it's about 37 point something. So those are the reasons that, we continue. We know that the country is resource challenged, and these are the reasons why we continue to do what we can from here. Our stakeholder intervention includes, as we said, our members, they fundraise and they do all of that. We also intervene in terms of we send recycled books home. I don't know whether our your viewers would have seen some of the book drive activities that we do. So far, we've sent about 7,000 books home. And apart from that, we also have a consultancy service here. We try and upskill the teachers back home. So we set up a project called NSF Excellence in Education Development. Again, we try and influence the policymakers. From here, we do have education seminars as well. In fact, we have one happening in October, in which there's another grim statistics. There's about 3.2 million disabled kids in Nigeria that are not in formal education. Maybe about 4% of them are in formal education. Here in the UK, they have at some point about 1.2 million, and all of them are in formal education. So we are doing what we can to try and support education back in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
So although you may see us differently, but that's all we do.
No, it's great that you're trying to relieve the burden. And just to go back to my point about the 10.5 million, I said, is that all? Only because, of course, you can imagine we've been discussing what the pandemic has done to children's education in Nigeria. And I think some of those statistics have widened.
Exactly. That was at some point in time.
At some point in time, yes. I want to talk about what you do here, because there were some statistics out earlier this week. The cost of living crisis, you can't get away from it, but unfortunately it's going to impact minority communities more. I know during the pandemic, you kind of expanded your reach to not only helping Nigerians in Nigeria, but helping Nigerians in the UK, because we also need
help.
Some help as well.
True. So true, Juliana. We do have a community purpose here as well. So we try and connect Nigerians in the diaspora here. And we do that through promoting awareness, through sporting activities, education, and other social interaction. COVID, the lockdown, created a different dynamics for us. So we had to look at our model and change it slightly. We had no choice but to assist the community. There were all kinds of things happening at the time. Our activities mainly, where they're socially involved. You need some kind of social interaction. And with COVID, you couldn't really do that. So all we did was that we diverted all our resources, and then we started having a webinar series called Let's Talk About It. In that series, we talked about the things that matter to the community from, at the time, because everybody was under lockdown, from cybersecurity, health issues, insurance matters, finance as well, finance and social inclusion.
Wale Cornelius Somwo, the director of the Nigerian Schools Foundation, as well as other professional hats that you wear. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's my pleasure.
Coming up on Channel's Business Global, Robin Gwynne, the former senior British diplomat and director of the business consultancy firm Whiteleaf Solutions, will be joining me here in the studio to discuss the fallout following last week's elections in Kenya, and I'll be looking back at some of the biggest business news stories of the week. All this after the break. Do stay with us. Welcome back to Channel's Business Global with me, Juliana Olayinka, from our studios here in London. In a moment, I'll be speaking with the former senior British diplomat Robin Gwynne, but before then, here's a rundown of the biggest business news stories of the week. Saudi Aramco has announced the biggest quarterly profit of any public company in history, thanks to surging oil prices and demand. The state-controlled fossil fuel giant made a profit of $48.4 billion in the 3 months to the end of June. This is up 90% on the same period a year earlier, and the figure is the equivalent to around $500 million of profit every single day. China's central bank has unexpectedly cut a key interest rate for the second time this year in a bid to revive credit demand to support the COVID-hit economy. The People's Bank of China said it was lowering the rate of some lending facility financial institutions by 10 basis points to 2.75%. Lending in China tumbled in July as fresh COVID flare-ups, worries about the labour market and a deepening property crisis made companies and consumers wary of taking on more debt. Japan's economy has returned to its pre-pandemic size in the second quarter, thanks to strong consumer spending and higher exports. The world's third largest economy grew 0.5% in the 3 months to the end of June and 2.2% year on year. The country's economy minister said he expects growth to continue, but is concerned about global trends, which include soaring inflation. Now to our final topic. The delayed announcement of Kenya's presidential ballot has fueled anxiety and allegations of fraud in a country that has been scarred by previous post-poll violence. Security had to be stepped up in various poll centres amid scuffles between party agents. Experts say if either side disputes the results, even with evidence, it would increase the risk of violence. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by the former senior British diplomat and director of the business consultancy firm Whiteleaf Solutions, Robin Gwynne. Robin Gwynne, it's an absolute pleasure having you back on the show to discuss the fallout of the Kenyan elections. I suppose it's first best to start with the anxiety, which is palpable. Are you surprised that the race was so tight?
Well, thanks, Juliana, for having me back. Well, I think as we're speaking, this complex process is probably coming to conclusion. So we can draw some conclusions, I think, at this point. I mean, the first is that it has been a complex process. There have been 6 different elections. And as we said before, that would be a challenge for any country globally to pull that off. Secondly, I think the Electoral Commission, who have the primary responsibility for delivering an open but also a credible result, they have, in a sense, helped themselves and gained a lot of credit, I think, by publishing results as they came along from the polling stations. What hasn't been done is a public tally that's been going on. So I think, as viewers will know perhaps, anyone with access to the Electoral Commission website has been doing their own tallying, whether that's the media in Kenya or globally, or other interested parties. So perhaps it's not confusing that there's been some confusion along the way and different signals being sent, because everybody's come up with their own tally. But it won't be too long, I think, before we see what the final official result is. And I'll just say, I think, because many people are also saying this, credit to the Kenyan people, to the electorate, to everybody involved. It's been a peaceful process as far as we can make out, with some sad exceptions, generally peaceful, orderly. Of course, there's a lot of tension in the air, a lot hanging on the result when it does come out and the aftermath. But so far, I think Kenyans can really bask in that should we say, appreciation that they've had from other countries in the region, across Africa, and even globally.
Here, I absolutely agree with you, and I think it's important we point out that unfortunately we're not going out live just yet. So we'll skip the result and we'll move on to some more pressing issues. I do want to talk to you, Robin, about Uhuru Kenyatta, who has served 2 terms. He is considered a strong ally to the West, and he has had, I would say, quite strong support across Africa. However, you know, in his 9 years in the tenure, he has overseen spiralling debt, as well as rising inflation. I know there's rising inflation everywhere, including here where we are. But in your opinion, what would you say are some of the most pressing issues facing his successor? And do you think Kenyatta has left office with his legacy intact?
Well, I think the answer to that does flow very much from the result when it comes out. In a sense, just to say, obviously, that result will either be one or other main contender winning or a runoff, which is possible, but seems extremely unlikely. I'm saying that because whoever wins, and it does look like it's, at the moment, William Ruto edging it, but we don't actually know. But whoever wins, their first task, of course, will be unity and calmness within the nation. That goes without saying. And then the second task will be the immediate cost of living issues. And again, to be honest, any new head of government or state coming into power anywhere around the world would be thinking in these terms this week. Sadly, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the global supply, energy and supply chain crises, these are, of course, causing pressures all over the world, and Kenya is far from immune from that. The other massive issue, I think, that is particularly acute in East Africa and other places at the moment is climate change, of course, you know, but particularly the drought in northeast, spreading into Somalia, Ethiopia. I mean, I think it's 4 years now since there have been proper rains and not much prospect of the next rainy season improving on that. So again, a massive issue with a lot of international concern and hopefully backing for the new president to address that. Longer term, Juliana, you sketched out some of the issues, mostly around continuing the infrastructure agenda and related debt issues. And also you touched on another major, both opportunity and challenge, I think, for the new president, whoever he may be, which is the regional and the continental wide and the global challenges. So as you say, President Kenyatta, again, credit to him, carved a role with Kenya at the center of a number of regional dynamics, both political and economic and security related. Both William Ruto and Raila Odinga bring their own regional, ready-built alliances, friendships with some of the regional leaders. That will all take a bit of interpreting and managing whoever comes out on top. And then I think the floor will be open for Kenya to take up again, hopefully, the baton of the positive role it's been playing in the region and more widely, economically, politically, and in security terms. And as we've said before, remember, Kenya is still on the Security Council as well till the end of the year, with these massive global issues playing out. So again, the new president will need to be behind and on top of these issues very quickly.
Thank you for that analysis there. What do you take, Robin, from women? The fact that so many of them, as you were saying quite rightly, there are so many elections on Tuesday. I know the world is focusing on the presidential one, but there have been others, and more women have been elected than any time before. Positive.
Absolutely. I mean, this is always, I think, a good sign. I mean, I know we've commented on the turnout as well, which has perhaps been a bit less encouraging, down 15%, I think, on the previous election. But the number of women candidates and those succeeding has been very positive. I mean, the one thing of interest, if indeed William Ruto has won, is that Martha Karua, who was Raila Odinga's running mate, does not seem to have attracted women to support Raila for whatever reason, if that's what happens. Which is interesting because she's, I think, by some way run for the most powerful senior position for a woman in Kenyan independence history. So that particular gambit may or may not have paid off. But generally speaking, at county governor level, at parliamentary level and so on, it's fantastic to see more women. And I will say we will all need to interpret the results of those other 5 elections when they come out in terms of what kind of candidates are coming through at national and local level, more women, perhaps more youth, more people focused on issues rather than ethnic issues, more focused on politics, economics. There's everything to play for, I think, because we look at what the results when they're out are really demonstrating about the direction of travel in Kenyan politics.
Absolutely. Well, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and we'll have to speak to you yet again once all of the results are out and we can assess the damage or prosperity that has been done to East Africa's largest economy. Robin Gwynn, a former senior British diplomat, as well as the director of White Leaf Solutions, which I know is a business consultancy firm headquartered here in the UK. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Juliana.
Well, sadly, that's all we have time for today. But as always, do get in touch with your comments and suggestions. I'll see you at the same time next week for more in-depth business analysis on Channels Business Global. Goodbye.